It's not for this week. It's 3 days. I think he's chaf.
He said Parshas Emor.
He said Parshas Emor. So he's got 3 days on.
But that's when he was going to give Kiddush.
Yeah, right, so I haven't.
Because his yard side's on chaf, I see.
Right. Yeah, but he went with the 3-day program. I gave him, I think, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
Okay, but he can put me down for a week.
Oh, okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Shkoyach.
Akiva, now you have to announce the sponsor.
Okay, so Leil Nishmas, your father? Dave.
Yeah, why not?
Okay. Today's broadcast, this week's broadcast is sponsored by David Zoltan family. Leil Nishmas, his father, Reb David, Reb Moshe, right?
No, Reb Moshe Reb Chaim.
Reb Moshe Reb Chaim.
I'm still alive.
You're David Chaim.
You should get a free day for that.
We discussed that with Shloimi, with the Kugel burns. You get a credit. If you get a credit for the Kugel, then you get a credit for you saying the mistake.
Some people think I'm brain dead, so maybe you.
That's for sure.
Okay, so we were talking about this thing called an istema. And the Gemara said that what an istema was a bezuni, and there was a kalapruchi. The kalapruchi, according to one shot, was some type of colorful beged that scared away the flies. And it was not woven, it was pressed like a felt. And that's why the Brisa at the bottom of the Zayin Beis says Gimel Dvarim Nemer Be'istama, Ein Do Mishum Klayim. There's no halach of Klayim on it. This Klayim is only by a properly woven beged. Then you haven't been a guy and can't become tummy with a nega. Again, that only applies to a properly woven beged. Then Yosy Bar B'Rishus Harabim, you're not allowed to go out in the Rishus Harabim with it. And Mishum Shimon Amru, also Af Ein Ba Mishum Ataris colors. There was gzeros that were made by the Churban around the Churban time that limited that chasna tekanos in those days as well. That limited how lavish these chasnas were allowed to be. But this was not in the restriction. They were allowed to do this type of. We were allowed to use this insect repellent. With Shmuel Omer, so this whole sugya started because the Mishnah, our very Mishnah, says that one of the things that you're not allowed to go out with is v'loy b'kful. And the Gemara wanted to know, is this kful mean the wool hat that's underneath, the wool scarf that a woman wears underneath her hat that she covers her hair with? And if that's the case, kol shkein would be usher to go out with this other thing. Or does it mean kavlu da'avta? Or does it mean, what does the Mishnah say? You can't go out with a kful, talking about a shivcha, and she can't go out with the symbol on her beged that identifies her as a shivcha. But maybe the wool scarf that a woman wears under her savcha or sivcha, that might be mutter to wear on Shabbos. So now we're going to drill down a little bit into this kavla da'avta. Tanan, Shmuel Amar kavla da'avta. Our Mishnah says that you're not allowed to go out with a kvul. It's referring to an evet, referring to an evet or a shivcha, and she's not allowed to go out on Shabbos with the emblem that says she's an evet on her beged. So she's not allowed to go out with the Walmart logo on her sweater because that identifies her as an evet, or the Amazon employee crest. She's not allowed to go out with that. In fact, when we are Shmuel Hachi, did Shmuel in fact say that? But Omer Shmuel that Yosy ha'eved b'choshim shebetzavari avaloi b'choshim shebeksusai. So how could you say that Shmuel learns the Mishnah that you're not allowed to go out with a chosim? Shmuel in fact says that you're allowed to go out with a chosim shebetzavari avaloi b'choshim shebeksusai. So there were two types. There were some of them that wore around their neck like a necklace, and it had on it a tag. It's very similar to what people wear in office buildings. It has their security card in it, their ID card. So you're not allowed to go out with that. So Shmuel said you are allowed to go out with that. But if it's a crest on the beged that they're wearing, that they're not allowed to go out with. It makes a very big difference as to who made this for you and where it came from. if this uniform is issued by your employer, Walmart says this is a mandatory uniform that you have to wear, or Amazon says this is a mandatory uniform you have to wear, that'll be less chomer because that people will be afraid to take off. So when Shmuel says that's when it's a mandatory ID card that someone has to wear around his neck. And if you have to wear a mandatory ID card, the Balabais would be very angry at you if he caught you not wearing your uniform. If there's a Walmart employee not wearing the uniform, they probably get thrown out right away. They get fired. They have to wear the uniform. So therefore, they would be afraid to take it off. And if they're afraid to take it off, so Shmuel, because we're not afraid that I'll take it off and carry it, because it's mandatory. It's a mandatory condition of employment. We're talking about a guy who didn't have a uniform. He works for a company that didn't have a uniform. And he went out and made his own uniform. So there, since it's not a mandatory requirement of the job, he might take it off. And if he takes it off in Rosh Hashanah on Shabbos, he might end up carrying Daled Amos Rosh Hashanah. Zok. So let's just chazer over. When our Mishnah says that the shifra is not got with a kvol, that's speaking if the person put that crest on the beged by themselves, because they might come off and they'll carry it. However, if an employee on their own made themselves a uniform, then Shmuel says it depends. If it's the choshen, I'm sorry, I apologize. Our Mishnah says it's usher is speaking where the employee made themselves this crest, this uniform, and therefore they might take it off on Shabbos, not wear it, and carry it, and that will make it, that will lead to carrying Daled Amos Rosh Hashanah. Shmuel says that where Shmuel said you're allowed to go out with choshen Shabbat Savari, which is not like what the Mishnah says. That's because Shmuel is speaking about an employer-issued uniform that has to be worn. Otherwise, the Balabais, the employer, will be makbid and fire the employee, and therefore you don't have to be choshen to take it off. I won't have to see shortly why not. Shmuel, who's matir for an Eved to go out b'choshen Shabbat Savari, is if the Adon made it for him, and therefore he wouldn't dare take it off. But if our Mishnah, which is not a weird, is something that he made for himself. If he made it for himself, he's likely to take it off when he's outside socializing. When he's on his break time and he went to the bar for the night and he wants to meet up with people, he's likely going to hide that crest so nobody should see it, so that he could be more attractive and he won't have to advertise that he's in it. So the case where we said that Shmuel is matir to go out, that's by an employer-issued ID card that he has to wear. Well, if that's the case, if we know that the Eved is not going to take it off because it's employer-issued, so why is there a problem if it's on his beged? Dafka an ID card around his neck is a problem, but wearing a uniform with a crest on it, that should be usher to wear. He shouldn't cover that over either, and there shouldn't be a chashash of carrying it. So tomorrow I'll tell you why. Because he might be on the street, and something's going to happen that whatever this crest or this attachment that's hanging on his beged will get damaged. Dilma miss it. Maybe somehow outside this will get damaged, and now he's afraid if his Adon catches him walking in public with that crest torn off his beged, he's afraid that his Adon will be angry at him. Why did you tear your crest off the beged? Umirsis. And because of that, what he'll do is, instead of wearing his jacket that doesn't have the company badge on it, he'll crumple up the jacket, put it over his shoulder, and he'll carry his whole jacket on, because then his Adon won't be so upset. He won't ask why you're not wearing a jacket. Sometimes an employer wants to wear a jacket. Sometimes he doesn't want to wear a jacket. But if he's wearing a jacket and he ripped off the crest, that's something that would be objectionable. But since he might carry his jacket, the problem is carrying his jacket. Daled Amos Rosh Hashanah. Kidei Rabbi Yitzchak bar Yosef. The Omer Rabbi Yitzchak bar Yosef Omer Rabbi Yechidah. Hayoytze b'talis mekupelas. If you take your jacket off and you fold it up, and you just carry it, you hold your jacket over your shoulder on Shabbos, and you walk Daled Amos Rosh Hashanah, chayav chatas, because you're not wearing it, you're carrying it. It's no different than any other maser. And v'chihad amal Shmuel Reb Chanina bar Shila, kulu rabbanon, all of the rabbis that work in the bezdin, in the household of the Reish Galusa, kulu rabbanon the Reish Galusa leilivku b'sar v'li chasimi, They should not go out. They should not go out with these type of begodim on Shabbos, with begodim that had their crest. So if they worked for Dirshu, they're not allowed to walk out with their Dirshu crest on Shabbos.
What about
Why
the
is
premier
that?
crest?
Because if it gets damaged, I guess it will be the same halacha. But if it gets damaged, then the Reish Kusa will be upset. Why did you tear off the identification? Levar b'noch, except for Chidna Bar Shilo, he says you can go out. You know why? Lekapti alecha the Reish Kusa. The Reish Kusa knows that you're super loyal to him, and you'll never stab him in the back. So he doesn't really care if you wear the crest. Your whole being screams loyalty to him, and therefore he wouldn't be makbid. So therefore, you even if it got torn, you wouldn't take it off because he would know that you definitely don't mean to rebel against it.
So this was
So let's just
sewn
review.
on, right? Okay, sorry. Okay, go ahead. I just want to know if you can review.
I don't
then
know.
I'll-
It was something that was probably sewn on. That's correct. So
then
let's just review.
okay.
Let's just review and know the questions. So if it's an employer issued beged, there we know that if it's a standalone ID card that he wears around his neck, he's for sure not going to take it off. He will not take it off because if he takes it off, his Adam will be angry at him. So since it'll never come off, we don't have to worry that he'll carry it. He'll want to conceal it. It might break, but if it breaks, typically these were made out of cheres. They had no value to them. So if it broke, there wouldn't be a problem. His Adam would see it broke, it wouldn't bother him. If it's on this beged and the employer made it for him, there he's afraid that the Adam might falsely accuse him of damaging that crest, or whatever it was or so on his beged. So we're afraid that they'll take his beged off and just carry his beged folded up so it won't be noticeable. Our Mishnah is speaking where this Eved made the crest for himself. If he made the crest for himself, then he's very likely to take it off in public when he's out there and he doesn't want people to know he's an Eved. So therefore, no matter if it's on the beged or if it's something he wears specifically around his neck, we're afraid he'll take it off not to advertise in public that he's an Eved. So, Kiva, what were you saying?
No, I guess you answer the question. I guess if it's just stuck on, right? Let's say it's those things that you stick on or iron-ons. Is that the same halacha? Right? Because then they don't have the tearing, and then it's.
Well, the question is there a chash of Dilma Mifsaki? Yeah, I would say a sewn-on logo on a company jacket that there's no chash that'll tear off. That doesn't tear off. If it's something that could fall off, that could tear off, then it probably would have the chash. Now I don't know today with labor laws. I'm just using I'm using Walmart as an example. Of course, the person won't be afraid. I was just trying to allude to the fact how Walmart and Amazon treats their employees like slaves. But of course, it doesn't apply. It only applies to a slave who they'll be hakpada, who'd be afraid of their Adam. But it has to be something that could possibly break or tear. Because if it can't, why would there be a chash that would happen and you would fold your beged? So right now, we only have 4 cases to deal with. If it's on the beged or if it's a standalone ID, if it's self-issued, or if it's issued by your employer. So those are the 4 scenarios. And let's just look at each case, what its halacha would be and why, because we're going to introduce shortly more cases. So if it's issued by the employer, if it's an independent ID card, we're not worried because only one of 2 things could happen. I might take it off to conceal that I'm an Eved. That wouldn't happen because if it's employer issued, I'd be afraid to do that. And that's what Shmuel holds. You're allowed to go out with it on Shabbos, and Eveds are allowed to go out with it on Shabbos. The second thing that might happen, it might break, it might smash, or bang into something. And if that's the case, is he going to bring back the pieces? No, because it was made out of cheap material. It was made out of cheres. The Odin will see that it broke, and therefore he won't carry the pieces back because it has no benefit. It's a broken piece of cheres. Nothing he can do with it. There's nothing to save. If the crest was on his beged and it got torn off, he for sure wouldn't take it off because it's employer issued. But if it got torn off, he'll be afraid that he'll be falsely accused by his employer of trying to conceal it. So therefore, rather than walk in prominent with this beged on, missing that crest, he'll just take the whole beged off, fold it up, and carry it, so nobody will notice. That's what Shmuel says. Our Mishnah talks about if it's employer, if it's employee, if it's employee issued, meaning it was not a mandatory uniform, but the employee on his own made himself a little uniform. There is no hakpada at all that the Adon will be upset because the Adon never issued those begodim. And therefore, we're afraid that this fellow, when he's on the job, he's happy to wear the company logo that he himself made. But when he's out in the bar, socializing, trying to pick up a date, he's for sure going to conceal. He's for sure going to conceal his ID card. He's not going to wear his ID card that says he's a Walmart employee when he's trying to pick up somebody in the bar. And because of that, he's going to want to say that he's a CEO of some organization. And therefore, we're not worried. I'm sorry. Therefore, we are worried that he'll carry a Daled Amos B'Shus Rabbim when he tries to hide it.
You don't think the logo for the Reish Galusa is going to be effective in a bar?
On Shabbos?
I remember when my father would take me to school, from time to time we would pass a Lincoln Town car, a gorgeous Lincoln Town car. And whenever you see a gorgeous Lincoln Town car growing up, we would look at who's driving that car. It's a chashuv guy, a wealthy guy. And then when we pulled up close to it, across the back of the hood, it says, "It's fun to shop at Amisted's." I don't know if you remember, Amisted's used to give his executives town cars, but he splattered that thing on it. It's fun to shop at Amisted's. That sucks the whole prestige out of the car. I remember there was this yeshivish shlepperish guy who married a very wealthy girl, and the shver gave him a Mercedes, a gorgeous Mercedes, and he slapped a bumper sticker on it that said, "This car climbed Mount Washington." Not all these yeshivish shlepper station wagons had that sticker. This car climbed Mount Washington. So he put on a brand new Mercedes.
Akiva Magic gave out Honda Odysseys to some of his guys for national benefits.
Exactly, it's the same thing. It's not so choshev when you're somebody's billboard. So we always laugh about that. Okay. Zok the Helig Gemara. Gufa. Omer Shmuel. Let's get a deeper understanding of Shmuel's halacha. Yosy ha'eved. Eved may go out. B'choshim shebet safari. And we said that's because it's employer issued, and he would be afraid to take it off. So therefore, we don't have to be worried that he'll carry. Avo loy b'choshim shebet chusay. But he may not go out with the choshim that's on his bed, that's on his beged. And the question is why. Someone sent me a WhatsApp. I'm not sure if it's for now or not. So let me see. Someone got it. Okay, Zok to more about it. Tanya Nami Hachi. We looked at the Brisa. Yoitza Eved b'choshim shebet savari. An Eved is allowed to go out with this ID card on his neck, around his neck. Avoloi b'choshim shebet susay, which is exactly what Shmuel said. We're a mini, but we have a kasha. It says which is similar to the kasha we just had between Shmuel and the Brisa. And we said, the way we answered it earlier, was that the Mishnah that says, we said that it was speaking about an employee issued. It wasn't a mandatory uniform. The employee wore it on his own. And that's why we're afraid he'll take it off. So we'll see how the Gemara answers this kasha. And the next thing that the Brisa says is Zev v'zeh ein mekabel tumah. None of these crests are mekabel tumah. The Brisa also says v'loy bezug shebet savari. An Eved's not allowed to go out with a bell that's around his neck. Avol yoytehu bezug shebet susay. He is allowed to go out with a bell that's hung off his beged. These were adornments. And Zev v'zeh mekabel tumah. Those bells, although a choshim is not mekabel tumah, but a bell is mekabel tumah. Then it says, "Let's say it's a behema. A behema shouldn't go out. Loy b'choshim shebet savara, loy b'choshim shebet ksusa, because that's considered a masui, and you're not allowed to carry it. Loy b'zug shebet ksusa, loy b'zug shebet savara, and the behema is not allowed to go out with a zug at all. What's wrong with a zug? It's an adornment. So Tosfos tells us because we're afraid. It looks like whenever there's a bell on an animal that you're leading outside, it looks like you're taking it to the market to sell. Okay. But both a choshim or a bell on the cow, on an animal, is not makabel tumah. And we'll have to soon see why is a zug not makabel tumah. So, getting back to what we're focusing on is, Shmuel said Eved could go out with choshim shebet savari, but the Brisa we just quoted said an Eved cannot go out with choshim shebet savari. So the Gemara wants to suggest the same answer that we answered between Shmuel and our Mishnah. Shmuel, who allows a shifcha or an evet to go out with choshim shebet savari, is if the Adain, if his boss issued that ID card, and therefore since he wouldn't dare take it off, we don't need to worry that he'll carry a Daled Amos B'Shus Rabbim. But where the Brisa says you're not allowed to go out with a choshim shebet savari, It's the Ovid Ilan Apshe. It was an employee made the ID card for himself. There he might take it off in public to conceal it so that no one has to know that he's an Eved. So that's how the Gemara wanted to suggest making the difference between the Bryce and Shmuel, the same way we answered the difference between Shmuel and our Mishnah. But the Gemara says, no, I don't want to say that. Loi, I might be able to say otherwise, that Idi v'Idi David Rabbi. You can say that the Bryce is also speaking. You could say that you could say that even Shmuel's case is the David Rabbi. So why is it that in this last case, when Shmuel said, I'm sorry, we want to say that both cases are speaking where the Adon made it. And if both cases are speaking when the Adon made it, so therefore it should be Osir even in the Brisa. The Brisa says, why would that be allowed? I'm sorry, I'm getting mixed up. I apologize. Shmuel says, I'm sorry, the Brisa says, Lo Yecha Eved B'Choshim Shabbat. If the Brisa says, Lo Yecha Eved B'Choshim Shabbat, that means that we know he's not going to take it off. Why will he not take it off? Because of this makbid. The Gemara wants to say, Idi v'Idi, David Rabbi. In both cases, it's speaking where his Adon made it. Sai the case of the Brisa that says he's allowed to go out with it, and Sai the Brisa that says he's not allowed to go out with it. But the problem is, why would the Brisa say that an Eved cannot go out with this Chosim if his Rav made it? We already declared that there would be no problem that he might take it off. So why would a Brisa ask someone, an Evet, to go out with Chosim Shabbat Savari? If it's Mishlava before, where we wanted to say that this is going where it's an employee thing that he did on his own in Shmuel, it makes sense why the Evet shouldn't go out with it, because we're afraid he'll take it off to conceal it. But now that we want to say this is also speaking where it was employee issued, so if that's the case, it was employer issued. If it was employer issued, why is it that he can't go out with it? He's for sure not going to take it off because his Adon gave it to him. And that the Gemara says, the Cham B'Shal Matlas, Cham B'Shal Tim. If an employer issues an ID card that's valueless, it's made of cheres, we know he won't take it off. And if it breaks, he won't carry it because his Adon doesn't care to have the remnants of an old plastic ID card. But the Brisa that says that even if it's employer issued and he wouldn't dare take it off, but if it broke and it's a valuable piece of metal, then we're afraid he'll bring the pieces back to his Adon to fix it. So therefore, you can have another chiluk, even in the company issued ID card. It's not always mutter. It's only mutter if we don't have to worry about him bringing back broken pieces. We know he won't take it off. So if it's made of a cheap item, if it's a cheap ID card and doesn't have any value, then we'll be matter an Evet to wear it on Shabbos. And the reason why we'll be matter an Evet to wear it on Shabbos is he wouldn't dare take it off and carry it. And if it breaks, he won't bother bringing the pieces back because nobody has interest in those broken pieces. But if his ID tag was made out of metal, there we're not worried he'll take it off because it was issued by his Adon. But if it breaks, if it's smashed, we're afraid he'll gather up the pieces from the floor and carry them back to his Adon, and that'll involve a Tomishus Tashus or Havoris Talaramis B'Shus Aram.
Yosy, Yosy, I must have missed something. We're talking here about worrying about that he's going to take it off and carry it.
Correct.
Why l'chatchila is it mutter to wear an ID badge? It's not a piece of clothing. It's not. It's not.
Why isn't that a masay?
Yeah.
Okay, it's an excellent kasha. It's an excellent kasha, and I want to bring your attention to a Tosfos which I could read the words and maybe you'll be able to help me understand it. 1 second. Zok Tosfos had this kasha. Why are you Tosfos on Nun Zayin and Beis wanted to know why is it that you would allow him to go out with it? So the Gemara says, Tosfos says in the Zayin Beis V'Shloimer the Kabbalah Avos Shori. Why? Kidei Lasses boy Koiras Ruach LeRabbi. The reason why it's not a masri, you let him go out because it gives nachas to his Adon. Shem Haya Kol Ayoin B'Loi Kavel Afilu B'Chatzer. If we would disallow an Evet to wear any indication that he's an Eved, then B'davar Muad Sheyasa Eved Keneged Rabbi, if on Shabbos an Eved not wearing company colors does something even slightly to make his other angry, Sover Rabbi, all of a sudden, his Rav is going to overreact, thinking Shadaita Limridboy. Look, he took off his crest and he's already making trouble. So since it will come to Likatata, that's why we allow him to wear it. So if you think about it.
What do you mean? It's not a Durabanan, it's a Deraisa we're talking about.
That's right. So
how could we allow him? How could Durabanan allow
him? You cannot suspend a Deraisa. You cannot allow an Evet to carry a Masri on Shabbos, which is an Isser Deraisa, because Shema Yavil Likatata. So it must be perceived as some quasi decoration too. So it can't just be a simple ID card, because there has to be some component of tachshit on it.
And maybe it's the same thing as we learned yesterday on Daf Samot Aleph, the woman. That's why they allow it, because it's not a Rishus Harabim, and maybe there are some kind of adornment to it. Meaning because of everything, they weren't makbid. It's not at the rice anymore.
What we learned yesterday by women is Bizman Hazeh, but this is still talking at the time of the Mishnayos, where the Mishnah outright outlaws it as carrying. So whatever it is, this item couldn't have been an outright masri. There had to have been some decorative value to it. So it was like half and half, because otherwise it's very difficult to understand this Tosfos exactly what David is asking, which is why I didn't understand Tosfos, is because it's like also like katata, so that suddenly makes it mutter to carry a masri in Shabbos. So you see, this is not a simple masri. There's something else to it that would give it a fuzzy identification, and because of that, the fact that it could come to a katata, or the fact that it brings koyach ruach to the rabbi, would help. Unless the mere fact that it makes the Adon feel good makes it into a decoration on behalf of the Adon.
It's like
who said the jewelry? Who said your wife has to like the jewelry? Maybe you have to like the jewelry that she's wearing, because the whole purpose of the jewelry is for you to see her, not for her to wear it.
It's like you said, Honest Ed's bumper stickers. Honest Ed wasn't giving out Cadillac or Lincoln Town cars. He was giving out advertising.
He was doing it for himself.
Exactly.
So, from your point of view, Mr. Eved, it might be a masri. From my point of view, it's the most beautiful adornment I've ever seen in my life.
I want people to see it. I've got a dozen Nevadim.
But who's the criteria is on the wearer. It's not on the person who gave it to you to wear.
Well, we saw by behemoths that a leash on a behemoth is not considered a masri. Why? Because it's made to protect it. What? So the Adon can keep it under control. You see, if the Adon keeping something under control, we look at that as protection for the animal, and we say that's not called a masri. So maybe when it comes to avodim, that's the mentality that our liberal government wants us to have anyway. Is that as long as we're under control of the big brother, it's for our own good. It's for our own good.
Yes, reminds me exactly a year ago when you came back from Karastiri. You were telling us how all the Hungarian workers have their Rav Shayla t-shirts.
Isn't it funny how political the Gemara is? It's incredible.
Right.
Okay, so could be the Gemara holds. You see it clear that if it benefits the Adon, like by an animal, that's called Toivus HaBehemah. So here too, I guess if the Adon has a nachas ruach from it, that takes it out of the category of masri. But I hear your kasha. It bothers me. That's why I brought it up.
It can also be for the benefit of the Eved, because somebody, if that's the chosh of a person owns this Eved, people may be less inclined to steal the Eved or do something unto.
You mean like if he has a union logo, no one's going to go after him because he might get his knees shot out.
Exactly.
We're discussing an Eved Knani. Is that correct?
Yes.
I'm going to assume it's an Eved Knani, right?
Yeah. An Eved Yehudi would for sure rip it off.
It's like gang color. It's like gang color.
I wasn't sure. I'm not wearing. I just borrowed this jacket. It's not my jacket.
My son's just a controller in the trucking industry.
That's right.
Okay.
It's an Eved Kanani, then why is it a problem in the first place?
It's an Eved Kanani who's Makabel Mitzvahs, right? He's Makabel Mitzvah when you make it.
Because he's it's like a Ger Taisha or something.
Well, he has the mitzvah. We're talking about a shivcha, but he has the mitzvahs of a woman. Okay, so let's see what we have over here. Okay, so now we have, so what we've done is we tuver, if it's an emblem that's not, has no value, there's no chash that someone would bend down and pick up the pieces. So then it's dependent on one thing. Was it issued by his master? And there he's allowed to carry it because he wouldn't dare take it off. Or was it issued by himself? And then he would take it off to conceal it. But even if it was issued by his master, if the emblem itself is of value, it's metal, there's a value to it, then we're afraid that even if he wouldn't dare take it off, but if it broke, he would pick up the pieces and bring the pieces back, and therefore he wouldn't be able to wear it. So to Gemara. So Kambish Amat, the Kambish Amatlus, Kambish Otit. Uchadrab Nachman Amar Abavua. Like Rab Nachman said in the name of Abavua. Dover Amakvid Olav Rabbi, if his Adon is makvid that he should wear it, and Yotzim boy, an Eved is not allowed to go out with it. Dover She'ein makvid Olav. So if the Adon is makvid that it's a value, he would want the pieces back, then you're not allowed to go out with it because if it breaks, you'll bring the pieces back. Dover She'ein makvid Olav. Yotzim boy, then you can go out. Hachanami Mistraber, and it actually makes sense to say this chiluk in the brisa, and not say that one is speaking where it's Ovid Leila Atzmai. Why? Because let's look at the brisa closely. The second brisa is Lo Yetay Eved B'Chayshim Shebetzavari V'Lo B'Chayshim Shebeksusai. So we would rather say this is speaking where it was made by the Adon, and we'd rather say that the reason why he's not allowed to go out with it is because he might bring back the broken pieces. Why is that? Because it says Zev is a Mekabel Tuma. So why is the brisa addressing its Kabbalah's Tuma? Yomit B'Shlema Shel Matchis. If we're discussing a name tag that was made out of metal, I understand why it is that the brisa had the need to speak out that it's not Makabel Tuma. If it was Cheres, there's no reason to say that it's not Makabel Tuma. It was metallic, and that's why the brisa had to say in Makabel Tuma. So Yomit B'Shlema Shel Matchis. If this brisa is discussing a metallic type of a valuable, an intrinsically valuable type of nameplate, Hani Huda Makabel Tuma, Dafka, these flat nameplates that are Pshute Kli Matris, and they're not Kalim at all, and therefore they're not Makabel Tuma. Ha Kalim to do, but if you had Kalim that was made out of this material, metal, Makabel Tuma, they would surely be Makabel Tuma. Eliyamak Bishal Tit, Tnan, if the brisa here is talking about valueless nameplates made of tit, well then, would you say Hanihu de Makabel Tuma or Kalim to do Makabel Tuma? Are you going to say, thank you very much, that if they were not nameplates, but they were Kalim, they would be Makabel Tuma? Of course not. But Tanya, we learned in the brisa, Klei Avonim, Klei made out of stone, Klei Glolim, Klei made out of tzoya, of an animal, Klei Adam and earth and Kalim, Ein Makabel Tuma. Loi Mediv Torah, Loi Mediv Soifin. So it's logical to say that this brisa is referring to a metal plate, and that's why it makes sense why you're not allowed to go out with it, even if it was issued by your employer and you're afraid to take it off, because the fear is that it might break, and then you're going to pick up the pieces and carry them back, and that's where there's a problem. Gewaltig. Zog to Gemara weiter. Omer. So we're going to go back to analyze the rest of the brisa. So the brisa first talked about the Eved wearing a chaysim, which we've covered from top to bottom. And now we're going to get up to the next thing. An Eved is allowed to go out with a zug shebet susoi. If he has a bell as an adornment to his beged, he's allowed to wear it. But he's not allowed to go out with a bell that's wrapped around his neck, a necklace bell. Omer mar v'loy bezug shebet zavari. Avol yoytzu bezug shebet susoi. It's like a tasha, it's a necklace. Why can't he go out with it? So tomorrow Dilma Misik, we're afraid that it'll fall off. But also Liyasuye, and he's going to carry a dalaramas. That's why he's not allowed to wear it. How about Zug Shabik Susay? How about if it's hanging on his beged? So tomorrow, Nami Lechesh Dilma Misik Vasilasuye. So tomorrow Hakabamayaskinam, the Mecha Bamumcha. What is the Mecha Bamumcha? So Rashi, it wasn't just sewn on that it could fall off and get loose. It was actually woven into the beged, which is a very strong connection, and it's the type of connection that would eliminate the concern that it might get ripped off, and then he would feel the need to to lift it up and carry it home. So you see that it depends on how well it's contained. So Tosfos asks a very important question. So let's have just a quick look at Tosfos. These are parallel cases in the Brisa. So if they're parallel cases in the Brisa, and when we say it's Choshim Shebevigda is Osir, and we said Choshim Shebevigda is Osir, it's because we're afraid it's going to fall off, and then he's not going to have the emblem on, so he's going to crumple up his back and put it over his shoulder and carry it. Well, the parallel case by a Zug Shebevigda, we said it's so well connected, it won't fall off. So if there's no chashash that the bell will fall off, why is there a chashash that the emblem will fall off? So on this Tosfos, v'yeshloim the zug mutter levishaderech le'orga bebeged. Shein shum beged shelo yeiroi l'noi v'tachshit kazeh. Every beged is happy to accept a nice adornment, a nice decoration on it. So therefore, it was the norm. Most bells were woven into begodim. That's how they were worn as an adornment. And therefore, v'tachshit kazeh, shelo yeiroi l'noi v'tachshit, no beged is not appropriate to add this nice adornment to it. Most begotten came with that nice adornment. So Chazal weren't mechayiv you to start cutting any bell you have. If you have any adornment on your beged, Chazal is not going to force you to take it off. It wasn't the norm to have on every beged an employer crest. It doesn't make the shirt look nicer or the jacket look nicer if it has the company logo. Therefore, there were geyser, even if it was securely bound to the beged, the Chachamim say you still have to tear it off, because sometimes it wouldn't be sewn up properly. But Avada, the case of Zug, where it's mutter on his beged, is because it's woven in very, very well. Okay, so to Gemara weiter. Oh, very good. Omer. Now we're up to the third case of the Brisa, which talks about a behemoth. Omer lasitz behemoth loy b'choshim shebetzavora, v'loy b'choshim shebeksusa, v'loy b'zuk shebetzavora, v'loy b'zuk shebeksusa. So the behemoth may not go out with anything because that's all called a masui, except the zug we said is not called a masui. The zug Tosfos says it's because it looks like you're taking the animal to the market. Zeh v'zeh in the kabel tuma. Both the choshim hanging on a behemoth as well as a bell hanging on a behemoth will not be makabel tuma. And now we're getting to a whole sugya of whether or not a cowbell is makabel tuma. So we're departing from Hilchos Shabbos and going into Hilchos Tuma. Fact the Gemara, v'zug the behemoth ain't makabel tuma. Are you suggesting that a bell on a behemoth is not makabel tuma, or a minute? I'll ask you a kasha from a brisa that says to the contrary. It says zug shel behemoth tamei. The bell of a behemoth is tamei. Vishaldelis, and if it's a bell that's on the door, then it's not going to be. Then it will not be makabel tuma. And Rashi says because it's called muchav l'karka. Now, what happens if I had shaldelis? If I had the bell of a door, and I decided that I want to use it for my cow, and I took it off the door, and I hang it on the cow. So shaldelis v'asoy l'behemoth. If it was originally of a delis, and then I hung it on the behemoth. Tameya, that'll make a tummy because now it's a cowbell and the cowbell is tummy. Shal behema avasla delis. But if I took the cowbell off of a hema and I decided I want to hang it up on my door, aval pisha chibre ladelis, the kaveh be mismorim. Even if you permanently fastened the cowbell to the door and even fastened it with nails, that's a permanent attachment. Tummy, it'll be tummy. Why is that? Why don't you say it becomes now mechuber l'karka and it loses its status of a keli and it becomes tar? The Gemara shekol hakelim yordan l'dei tumosim b'machshava. Any keli, the mere fact that you have an intention to use it for something that makes it into a keli that would allow it to be b'kabel tuma, just that machshava makes them tar. However, ve'ein oilim l'dei tumosim l'b'shinu ma'aseh. but you cannot let it lose its status of a keli, and therefore lose its status of tumah, or the ability to be makabel tumah, unless you make a shinu ma'isa. So you might ask, nailing it to the door and permanently affixing it as a shinu ma'isa. So Rashi says that doesn't change the actual item. It's bonding the item to a door, but the item itself wasn't changed. In order to be able to make something tummy, you actually have to change the actual item. For instance, I have a rug, a piece of leather, and I'm using it as an area rug. Now, a regular piece of leather is made to make shoes out of, straps out of, so it would not be makabel tumah. But if I have das, I'm planning to use it as an area rug, it instantly becomes a keli, because an area rug is considered a keli, and it's not tummy. Well, what if I said, you know what? I don't need my area rug anymore. I want to make shoes out of it. And I take the area rug, I pick it up and put it in my workshop. It's still an area rug. It's still tummy. We learned earlier, the Brash says if you take a knife and you start cutting the area rug, so I change the actual area rug itself, that's the ma'aser required to make it lose its status of a keli of an area rug, and now it's just raw materials that will be used for a keli that I eventually will make. So the shinu ma'aser has to be a shinu within the actual item itself. Okay. So I'll call upon what we did get out of here is that it clearly says that a cowbell is a keli and it's makabel tumah. So why is it that our brisa said that a cowbell is not a keli and is not makabel tumah? So like kasha, it's very simple. Had isla inbil, had lesla inbil. It all depends if it has that ringer inside, the little ball inside that shakes back and forth that makes a ring. In fact, Gemara, I don't understand. Manashach, imanahu, if it's considered a keli because it's a tachshit, alpha beta lesla inbil. It doesn't have to be functional. It's a decoration. And Yilav Monahu, if it's not considered a keli, invel, Imin Mashle Mona, why would just a little ringer make it into a keli? If it's attached, it shouldn't be a problem. Zok to Gemara. Because again, we're discussing its status of a keli because it's attached, not because of its function. So Gemara in fact, it doesn't make a difference if it has that little ringer inside it, that clapper inside it. Because Rab Shmuel bar Nachmani Omer Rabbi Yonasan. The Omer Rab Shmuel bar Nachmani Omer Rabbi Yonasan. How do you know that if you have an item that makes noise, a noisemaker, a gragger by metal, it's tamei? Shenemar kol dover. David Zolti is going to love this one. Kol dover asher yavoy be'esh tavir be'esh. So the pasuk is talking about kashering. It's not even talking about tumah. It says kol dover asher yavoy be'esh. Anything that you capture from the minyadim that you could put into fire, you can make a libun on it. Tavir be'esh, put it into a fire, make libun with tar, and it will be tar. So we darshan, dover means noise, dibur. Afilu dibur yave be'esh. Even if it's merely something that makes noise, it talks. How does a keli talk? It makes noise. That also needs to be made tar, and it also needs tahira. So therefore, it's going to be makabel tumah. The problem that Tosfos asks is, this is not even talking about tumah and tahira. It's talking about kashering. So Tosfos says, and this is why I think David will love this, because this is like so juristic to bring out a very serious halacha without the Kabbalah's tumah. So Tosfos says, the pasuk was not even speaking about tumah. And legabe hagala, speaking about taking out blias. Mistavra the hasam ein dibur ma'ilul moirid. It's mistaber to say that whether or not a keli is used to make noise, that should have zero impact on how you kasher it. And therefore, from any in lagala, since I don't need the Torah to tell me halacha, referencing hagala, will apply this pasuk to tumah, and will darshan that dover means dibur, and therefore anything that makes noise is makabel tumah. I can see David loves the swear.
Yeah, right. I don't think Tosfos really believes in his own tariffs.
Yosy, the wasn't the Gemara's question? I don't know.
Akiva, we got to get that Tanya out again.
Okay. What I don't know. What's the term for that? The ringer, is that what it's called inside the bell? Victor.
The clapper.
The clapper.
Yeah, we know clapper made a lot of noise.
A clapper? You mean as a?
No, clapper was the head of the FBI. I told you the Gemara is very political.
So
and that made him tummy, and he was tummy. He was a clapper, and he's tummy.
But the isn't that the question whether it's considered a kli or not? In other words, what good is a bell without a clapper? It's nothing. It does
That's
the
a
whole
very
point of
good
the
question. That's what the Gemara was saying earlier. It's a tachshit. If it's just made as a decoration on your baguette, it doesn't have to make noise. That was the Gemara Shiloh before. The Gemara Shiloh is if we're only talking about a tachshit, Lagabe a tachshit, it's not a functional bell. It's a decoration. Lagabe decoration, it shouldn't need a ringer. That was exactly what the Gemara Shiloh.
It's not. Isn't considered that a broken bell?
Well,
once it's a broken.
Going to say eventually, but at this point, the Gemara thought imanahu. If it's a tachshit, invul, and if it's not a tachshit, then invul mashal imana. How does a ringer make it into a mana? So that the Gemara says you're right. We're not using it as a tachshit. It's actually functional, and if it's functional, then the fact that it makes noise is what gives it its status of a keli, and that's what we learn from this drush of kol davar shavi b'veish to tell you that something that's made to make noise, the Kabbalah's Tumah comes because of the fact that it makes noise. But before the Gemara had a having to say, it was merely a decoration. It was like a brooch that you put on your chest. It's a decoration.
So at what point was it broke? I guess the question is when you put it on, it doesn't matter that, okay, I put it on as a bell and then it broke. Okay, look, I have a decoration, like the Something from Nothing book.
Exactly the question that you're bringing up now is what the Gemara is going to discuss. Is it shot? We're talking about a bell that didn't have its ringer yet. We're talking about a bell that had a ringer and the ringer fell off. Right. So that's exactly you're asking bang on because that's exactly where the Gemara is going. So Zok to Gemara, Omer b'Yonison, Minayim l'mashmir kol b'chlimat cheshutami, shenemar v'kol davar shiyav b'beis avir b'mayim, afilu diber, even something that's only a keli because it's a noisemaker, yav b'beis. Zok to Gemara b'mayo kipta. So what are you saying? But the less limbo, you're going to have to say that the brisa on Amud Aleph that we were discussing earlier that says zeh v'zeh ein mekabel tuma. When it comes to an animal, right? It says lo seitzi behema lo b'choshim shebetzavara v'lo b'choshim shebeksusa v'lo b'zuk shebeksusa v'lo b'zuk shebetzavara v'zeh v'zeh ein mekabel tuma. When it says that, it must be speaking, like you said, that it didn't have the ringer inside it. If it has the clapper inside it, that the brisa says that it's tummy. And this brisa here, our brisa on the Chesed Aleph, that says that if it's not mekabel tuma, it's speaking where the clapper is missing. That's how you're learning it. In fact, the Gemara, this case in the brisa is not in isolation. There's three cases in the brisa. It talks about Eved, it talks about Eved with the Choshim, it talks about Eved with the bell, and then it talks about Behema. And you want to say we're speaking about a bell that does not have its ringer. So frek to Gemara. B'mayu kimta, you want to still on the brisa on the Chesed Aleph, the Leslie Invel, speaking about a bell that didn't have a clapper inside it. Well, Emel Mitziosa. Let's look at when the brisa addresses an Eved wearing this bell. And it says, V'loi bezuk shebetzavara. He's not allowed to go out with a zug around his neck. And we already explained, because if it's around his neck, we're afraid it will fall off and he'll carry it. But if it's in his bed, we say it's woven in, it's there permanently. But then the brisa says, now you can't say that the bell, when it was discussing the bell of the Eved, it's speaking about one type of bell. And then a moment later, when we're talking about the bell of the behemoth, it's a different type of bell. We have to say that the brisa's cases are parallel. And it says by the Eved, V'zeh v'zeh mekabel tuma. And either less like invil, if it doesn't have an invil, mi mekabel tuma. Because Pashas, the brisa is speaking in a parallel case. In a parallel case, if you have a bell that was made for noise and it did not have a ringer in it, why would it be mekabel tuma? We learned in a brisa, ha'isa zogin l'machteshes ularisa u'lemitpachas. Somebody made bells there's many different reasons why people would use bells. So there was a lot of different type of bells in Hasidim, and they used these bells for different things. Is l'machteshes. L'machteshes, Rashi says, is we say in Peter Maktaris every day, kishu hadek amar hadek heitev hadek nesha koil yafal besamim. We learned that sound enhances the besamim. It's good to be making sounds when you prepare besamim. So the actual keli that they would smash the besamim with, the mortar and pestle, which one is the stick? Out of the mortar, I think the pestle is the stick and the mortar is the crucible. So the pestle, which is the stick, had a bell on it. So as you're crushing it, automatically made noise, and that would improve the quality of the ketores or any type of spices that you're grinding. Larisa is we also on our cradle we put little noisemakers to entertain the babies. L'mitpachas sforim, where I remember when I was in grade 1, after recess we were all playing outside, And Rabbi Yaakobovich would scream out the window, Arain, Arain, to signify to the boys that recess was over and we have to come in. In those days, all they did was they attached to all the Sforim bells, and when the Rebbe was coming into the classroom, his Sforim were moving, and the bells ringing was an indication to the students that it's time to tune in. And Ulamet Pachas Tinoikis, as well, is they would put on the bib of a child, they would put bells again to entertain the children. So all these cases of these bells, Yesh Lahem Invel, if they have the clapper inside the bell, Tamein, Ein Lahem Invel, Taharin. And now it says Nitlu in Velain, so this is exactly the issue that Akiva brought up. What if it was originally made with a clapper and the clapper was removed from it? Then Adayin Tum Osun Aleim. Then they're still going to be Tamei. So the problem is, how could you say that the Invel of the Eved is going to be Tamei and it doesn't have a clapper? If it doesn't have a clapper, it's going to be Tahar, because it's like the first case. Eilam Nivel Taharin. What type of bells require a clapper? That's only bells that are made for little children. And therefore, if they don't have their clapper, they're nothing. A bell that's installed on a gadol, it's not made to ring. He's not a cow. It's just made as a takshid. And therefore, avagav lesla invel will be tummy. So in fact, it's actually not a parallel case. We're saying a bell by a cow is tahar, and a bell by an eved is tamei. They're both speaking about a bell that doesn't have a clapper, but the difference is a bell without a clapper for a cow is useless because its whole purpose was to make noise. But a bell without a clapper on a human doesn't matter because he's only doing it as a decoration. And if it's only as a decoration, it doesn't need to have a clapper. Now we're drilling down here. If it originally had a clapper and the clapper broke, which is what this Brisa says, it doesn't lose its status of tumah even though it lost its clapper. Why not? What good are these bells if they cannot fulfill the function that actually makes them into a keli? Zok the Gemara, Amar Abaye, the reason why it didn't lose its status of a keli is hoyel shahedit yochalach siroi. It's very easy to put the little clapper back in the bell. I guess the way it hangs in, you just hook it back in. Since it's very easy, we don't consider it that the keli is broken because it's so easy for it to be reconnected. Motzav Rav, Frek Rav Akasha, Hazug, a bell, va'invo, and a clapper, chibor, is connected. What does that mean? So Rashi tells us, Toshus does not agree with this, but Rashi tells us, Keshen Yachad, when they're connected, Harei and Kli Echad, they have a status of one keli. What does that mean? Nit mazeh, Hizal zeh, tar zeh. They both have a status of one keli, so that even if one part became tamei, the other part is tamei. If you remember, we learned a couple of days ago about the pairs of scissors, which the Gemara is going to bring in again. And we remember we said that if one becomes tamei, if one pair of the scissors become tamei, it was also talking about a plane. If the frame becomes tamei, then the blade's tamei, and if the blade becomes tamei, the frame is tamei. Yet if you try to make hazah on one, it won't include the other. And the Gemara asks, are they one keli? And therefore, it makes sense why one's on top of the other. But then why can't the hazah on one work for the other? Or are they two keli? So here we're saying that the zog and imbel is considered like one keli completely. And therefore, both for tumah and both for hazah, it's one keli. But even the kari lechibor, this is the punchline, since the Brisa says that the zog and the imbel are connected as one keli, shmamina, that would teach us the chinis pardu, if they broke apart, have a kli shenitel mitzasoi. It has the status of a kli that a piece was broken out of it. And we know the halacha about a kli that's broken out of it, a kli that has something broken out of it, even if it's easy to put back, it's not considered complete and it would be tar. So freik the Gemara, since it says zug ve'invel chibur, that tells us that even though it's easy to put back together, it still would not be considered a keli until it actually is put back together. So back to our kasha. Why is it that it's still tamei if the clapper was removed from the bell? The chitemo, if you want to say the following, if you want to say that that's what we meant when we said it's considered connected. And that even though it's chibur, even though it's one keli, but since it's so easy to put back together, it's considered one keli even when it's apart. And that's precisely what Tosfos doesn't like about Rashi, because we're almost repeating ourselves. That's exactly what we said a moment ago. And now we're sort of repeating the same svara. Tosfos doesn't like how that reads. So Tosfos changes the understanding of the Gemara. But I'll call upon him. If you want to say a chiddush that even though the bell is here and the zug is here, it's considered a complete keli. It's considered a complete keli, and therefore they're each tamei. Well, Tanya, the problem is we learned a brayso that says not like that. And this is the brayso that we learned a couple of days ago. Where is it? It's on Memches. A couple of days ago would mean 10 days ago. But Tanya mispoyer shel prokim. If you have a pair of scissors, that's really two pieces that could come apart. V'izmol shel rehitni. We say that's a plane that has like a wooden frame and the blade slides into it. So the halacha is chibur l'tuma, vein chibur l'azah. It's considered connected that if tuma touches one part, the other part becomes tamei, but it's not connected. Lagabe, if you spritz one part, it will not be matar the other part. For Aminon, and we learned back there 10 blot ago, manashach, if we say these two components are one keli, well then afilu lahazan nami. Then if you spritzed one, it's as if you spritzed the whole keli, and it should become tar. But if you're going to view these as two separate kelim, then afilu l'toma nami loy. So then why is it that if a sheretz touches one of these components, why would the other component become tamei? And Rabbi said, the pshat in this price was the var Torah midai raisa b'shas malacha chibur bein l'toma bein lazo. While you're using the scissor and everything is fully connected, and you're actually using the scissor, so in order to use a scissor, it has to be fully connected. Or while you're using the plane, you need the blade to be in the plane. You need it all connected. So while you're working with it and it needs to be connected, then we say midai Torah it's chibur bein l'toma bein lazo. It's one keli. Shaloi b'shas malacha. When you're not actually using it, even though Rashi speaks out, it's still assembled. You haven't disassembled it. So you have your plane that's still assembled, or you have your shoe that's still assembled, but it's not b'shas malacha. So right now they don't need to be assembled. It's not relevant. They're in storage. Therefore, we say midaraisa einay chibur. We consider it, even though physically they're connected, they're two separate kelim. Einay chibur la toma la lazah. The gazer al toma shaloi b'shas malacha. They were gazer on toma shaloi b'shas malacha mishum toma shi b'shas malacha. You have the keli. It didn't change at all. It's a fully assembled scissor. It's a fully assembled plane. Now the halacha is, if while you're using it, a sheretz touches it, it all becomes tamei. If you're not using it now, and the sheretz touches it, it's not tamei. That there's a small distinction between the two, because it looks exactly the same, whether or not you're using it or not. You didn't disassemble it. Therefore, they made a gzeira that if it's assembled, even if sheretz touches one part, the whole thing will be tamei, because if that occurred b'shas malacha, in fact, that would be the deraisa. The same thing on the flip side. While hazah she b'shas malacha, mishum hazah shaloi b'shas malacha. B'shas malacha, it's one keli, and therefore, if you spritz on one part, deraisa the whole part, the whole keli is tar. But since if you did the zrika while you weren't working with the keli, it would be considered two separate kelim, and each item, each part of the scissor or the frame, as well as the blade of the plane, would require zrika. Therefore, it would be geyser. So the problem is in our case, where you have the zug and the invol, where they're disconnected, for sure they shouldn't be mechuber. Here, even when they're connected, we're geyser and we're saying like they're not connected. But here the zug and the invol are completely disconnected. How could you say that they're mechuber linyan toma? And therefore, how could you say that if the zug fell out of if the inval fell out of the zug, how could the brayso say that if it fell out, it's still tar, still tamei? Nitlu in v'lein adayin tamos naleim. How could the brayso say this? The fact of the matter is when the keli is completely separated, nobody would argue that they're considered a keli. Ela Omer, what's the only reason why we would say that the bell remains tamei, even though at this point it's disassembled? Hoyel v'royu lakishay al gabei cheres. A bell, even if it doesn't have a ringer inside it, you could take the bell itself and bang it against something hard, and it would still make noise. So therefore, it doesn't yet lose its status of something that makes noise, because it could still make noise even though it doesn't have something that makes a ring inside it. And therefore, we can now understand the brayso that we learned, that even if the zug fell out of the inval, even if the inval fell out of the zug, even if the bell lost its clapper, nevertheless, it would remain tamei because the bell can still be used to make noise by banging the body of the bell to something which would create noise. Okay? Baruch Hashem, we finished. We got through Noach. We got through Noach. I feel like we got through a whole Mabul. And then we came out healthy on the other side. You know, when you finish Noach, you know what you need to do. You need to have a l'chaim. Even Noach had to have a l'chaim when you finish Noach. Anyway, there's a famous word that the Reb Price, everybody knows Reb Price loved Rabbi Stouffer, especially because of the strong support he got from Rabbi Stouffer for his Erev. So he used to always say that the Shiv Shield is as if Noach's Taifa. It's just like Noach's Taifa. Ein Mishpucha führt the ganze Masse. One family runs the entire ship. And the rest, Bahaimis with mist. And the rest are a bunch of animals and garbage.
It's definitely true. My father was in Talmud. I'm very close to Reb Price, and he drilled that into.
Oh, really? Your father heard it? I thought that was just entertainment. This is real?
Trust me.